Okay, this is the final segment. This is install related junk. I'm going to start out with earlier I mentioned to you guys that getting the signal from the factory stereo down to the amplifier was going to be a little tricky with this. So what I have here, this is what they call quick cable. It's made by a couple of different companies. Metro sells it, Stinger sells it. What this is this is speaker wire. Contained inside this wire, this blue jacketed wire, which is about the same thickness as a 4-gauge power cable, a true 4-gauge power cable. So it's probably almost a ½ inch thick. It's there's a little bit of excess at the end, so you can't see down in there. But anyway, what this is this has 8 speaker wires inside there, color-coded to the traditional, fairly industry standard colored speakers wires. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to splice into the stereo speaker outputs behind the radio in the dash. I am going to connect the output from the stereo into this. This will run under my carpet, down under my front seat, to the input on my amplifier. Then I'm going to take another piece of this and I'm going to run it from the amplifier outputs back into the dashboard to tie into the factory speaker wiring, so I don't have to rewire all of the doors. I'm doing this because I want to test the ability for the Kia factory radio, factory speaker wiring, and factory speakers with just a amplifier upgrade. After I'm able to test the factory speakers with the amplifier upgrade, I'm then going to replace the factory speakers with the speakers I've shown you in the prior videos. This is just for fun, just to test, see how well the factory speakers handle 40, 50 watts. We'll see what happens. Might be a smoke show, maybe not. So that's how I'm getting signal to and from. Because I don't know how it's going to work out, if I'm going to be able to live with the Kia factory radio, I'm also going to lay in these 5-channel RCA cables in case I do have to replace the Kia head unit with an aftermarket radio. I do not want to gut the interior twice, so I'm future-proofing by using these RCA interconnects, which will patch it, an aftermarket stereo into the aftermarket amplifier. All right, let's see, what else? So to get power to that amplifier, I will be using this stuff right here. This is very thick, pretty darn awesome New Concepts, KNUKONCEPTZ, I believe. New Concepts is the brand. 4-gauge cable. This stuff is super fat. It should be able to carry more than enough signal for this amplifier, but I'm going to give it every chance it can to make that rated power. It also picked up some ground wire of the same gauge, 4-gauge heavy duty stuff. Stuff runs about I think it's $1.50 a foot for the power and ground cable. It's actually a good deal. This is pure 100% oxygen-free copper, and you can't really get better than that. All right, what else? This is a drill bit. This is a step bit. What it allows me to do is drill a hole up to a very large size without having to have a huge long drill bit, because if you've ever been under your dashboard or under your hood, you know you don't have room for a foot-long paddle bit. So this little guy goes into your drill and lets you drill a large hole in a minimal amount of space. After reading and viewing many videos, it appears most folks just poke a hole through the rubber boot with the factory speaker wiring or the factory electronic harness that comes in from under the dash. I may end up doing the same and not even using this, but I have one just in case. What else? These are step-down adapters. These change the size of a cable, in my case, from 4 gauge to 8 gauge in case my super fat New Concepts power wiring is too big to fit into the Pioneer amplifier. This is again a just in case measure. This is my link to the battery. This is again a 4 gauge oxygen free copper. This was made by X Scorpion. It has an 80 amp fuse in it, which I will have to swap to a 100 amp fuse, but that is okay. Fuses are not expensive. The Pioneer needs a 100 amp fuse. This is again all, if I was able to get that amount of wattage, that amount of amperage out of the alternator, which I probably won't get. But I'm going to do it anyway. Let's see. These little guys. These are for making wire-to-wire connections in the dashboard. Screw your wires together, twist your wires together, screw this down over your twist, then crimp it, connect. These guys are what car stereo shops like to use. I may or may not use them. I may go with soldering behind the dashboard because I just like the solid soldered connection. We'll see. It all depends on how much wiring I have in the factory harness. All right, finally, these are a bag of 8 conductor wiring clips. I ordered these on Amazon. I'm going to utilize them on both ends of the 8 conductor wire that I discussed earlier to make quick connections to and from the factory stereo and factory wiring harness. I will end up making, let's see, 4 go in the dash, 2 at the amplifier, so a total of 6, 48 wired connections. This will be tedious. I may or may not show you a little bit of that just to see what it looks like. Anyway, that is, oh what, I got one more thing. Here we go. This is the crimp tool and crimp ends connection. This allows you to get a professional style end on your wire for your speaker outputs from the amplifier. So I will crimp one of these on each end and they will go into the little terminal sockets on the amplifier instead of having bare wire stuck in there. Much more professional, clean procedure. Anyway, so that is all of my installation junk. And that is all for now.